Before Alabama was a state, before settlers arrived, Native American nations lived on this land for generations. They were not wandering groups. They were organized societies with governments, laws, traditions, and trade networks. Their history has often been misunderstood. This is the story of revolution, reaction, and reform, and the choices Native people made when everything began to change. The history of Alabama's Native tribes shows revolution, reaction, and reform. Native nations built powerful societies long before the United States existed, faced violent reasons as settlers and the government pushed into their land, and continue working for reform and recognition today. In history, a revolution does not always mean a war. A revolution is a major change in how people live, govern themselves, or understand the world. For Alabama's Native nations, revolution began long before the European settlers arrived. Before European settlers arrived, Alabama was a home to many Native nations. These included the Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Cherokee, Alabama, and Mobile peoples. They farmed crops like corn, beans, and squash. They hunted, traded, and built permanent towns. Native nations governed themselves through councils and leaders. They had laws, religious traditions, and trade networks that connected the Southeast. Cities like Moundville were major centers of political and spiritual power. This was a revolutionary because it challenges the idea that civilization only came with Europeans. Native nations already had advanced societies, but history has often been told from only one point of view. For a long time, Native people were described in textbooks as weak or unorganized. History often focused only on Native removal instead of Native achievement. But Alabama Native nations were powerful political communities. They built governments, formed confederacies, and controlled valuable land and river systems. Being Native in Alabama was revolutionary because this land became one of the first major targets of American expansion, showing just how powerful and important they were. As settlers moved into Alabama, Native land became valuable. Pressure increased through broken treaties and threats. Native nations reached a crossroads.
A reaction is how people respond to change or conflict. At this crossroads, Native people responded in different ways. Some Native leaders believed cooperation was the best way to protect their people. They signed treaties, adopted American farming methods, and sometimes intermarried with settlers. Others believed cooperation would destroy Native culture. They chose resistance. Within the Creek Nation, resistance formed the Red Stick movement. Red Stick leaders wanted to protect traditional beliefs and independence. One important leader was William Weatherford, also known as Red Eagle. In 1813, violence exploded at Fort Mims near present-day Mobile. Red Stick warrior attacked the fort, killing more than 250 people. The Battle of Fort Mims shocked the United States. It showed how serious Native resistance had become. The United States reacted with overwhelming force. Andrew Jackson led troops against the Creek Nation. After defeat, the Treaty of Fort Jackson forced the Creek Nation to give up over 23 million acres of land. Settlers also reacted by demanding Native land for farms and towns. In 1830, the Indian Removal Act forced thousands of Native people from Alabama. Many were sent west of the Trail of Tears. Others stayed and fought legal battles to keep their land. While many Native Americans were forced to leave Alabama, others remained and resisted in different ways. Some avoided removal by living in isolation, settling in remote areas, blending into rural communities, and staying out of sight to protect their land and identity. At the same time, others fought more visibly through the legal system. In 1847, there was a state Supreme Court case, Wall v. Williams, where a Choctaw woman defended her land rights in an Alabama court using protections connected to treaty agreements. Her case shows that Native Americans were often forced to prove their identity and rights, even when those rights had already been promised. Legal resistance continued among Creek families as well. After the Treaty of Fort Jackson, some families were granted small reservations. However, not all were able to claim their land immediately. In 1836, Congress passed an act allowing individuals like Lynn McGee to set aside 640 acres, showing that Native Americans had to rely on continued legal action to secure rights that had already been promised. Primary sources from the Porch Creek further reveal that these legal battles extended into the 1900s, demonstrating that the fight for land and recognition lasted for generations. Together, these experiences show that Native resistance in Alabama was not limited to one method. It existed in both quiet survival and public legal challenges, each playing a role in preserving Native identity and securing future recognition. Whether through assimilation, hiding, fighting, or legal action, Native Americans in Alabama resisted in ways that ensured their survival. Survival became another form of resistance.
A reform is an effort to fix a problem or improve conditions after injustice for Alabama Native nations. Reform came through law, recognition, and long struggle. One important reform was the Davis-Strong Act of 1984, an Alabama law that allowed the state to officially recognize Native tribes. This law corrected decades of denial by acknowledging Native communities that had survived removal. That same year, the Porch Band of Creek Indians achieved federal recognition. Federal recognition is a major reform because it restores a tribe's legal status as a sovereign government. It allows access to health care, education, housing, and self-government. The Mohawk Choctaw Tribe organized as a Native community in 1969 and later became one of the first tribes recognized by the state of Alabama. State recognition was a reform because it officially acknowledged the tribe's survival and identity. Reform did not end with recognition. Some tribes are still working for federal recognition today. This shows that reform in Alabama Native history is real, but unfinished. Alabama's Native history shows revolution, reaction, and reform. Revolution through powerful societies and resistance, reaction through violence, laws, and removal, and reform through survival, law, and recognition. Native nations are not just part of the past, they are still here.